Good morning and welcome back to Cityline. Yep, I'm busy reading between breaks, and this is the book for the next 13 minutes that you need to focus on. This is Port of Tacoma, and I have two individuals here on the comfy couch that are ultimately responsible for this book getting into your hands. Please join me in welcoming the well-known, the effervescent, the man who never says no to any musical gig, Mr. Rod Koon. You are also the author of The Images of America, Port of Tacoma. Welcome to Cityline.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
It's
good
so
to see you
great
again.
to have you here. You brought with you this amazing woman who happens to be a Northwest Room associate at the Tacoma Public Library, the one, the only, Ilona Perry. Welcome, my dear, to Cityline.
Thank you for having me.
You two have been in good trouble. This is something, let me tell you. So, Rod, I know that you worked at the Port of Tacoma for more than, get ready, 38 years. So tell us a little bit about how that fed into you authoring this book.
I had many job titles at the port.
Yeah.
Never was I the port historian officially, but in a way, I love history and used to give a lot of presentations about the history of the port. So when I retired from the port in 2021, I thought I'd seen other Acadia Publishing books, and that there really wasn't one on the Port of Tacoma, the publicly owned port. And I thought, well, if somebody's going to write it, it might as well be me. So I spent the last year researching, working with Tacoma Public Library, the Northwest Room and the fine folks there, and some other groups as well. And that just got published in July.
Congratulations,
well, thank you.
Both of you. So we have some pictures we're going to scroll through here, and they're beautiful pictures. Thank you to any hands who touched those pictures and brought them into the studio with you. So what time frame is covered in this book and also the pictures that we're going to see?
Okay. It really starts in the late 1800s when the Northern Pacific Railroad chose Tacoma as the western terminus of its transcontinental line. In 1873, the railroad owned most of the land, most of the waterfront docks and piers along what's now Ruston Way. But if you want to just move through the photos, this jumps forward to 1967. Wow. I call this the original Tacoma Dome.
I was going to say, that's a dome in there.
It is. It held alumina that came in from Australia and then moved by rail down to the Kaiser plant. The Blair Bridge, for Tacomans who've lived here a long time, might remember driving across that on East 11th Street or being stuck when the bridge was in the up position.
That's more like it,
yeah.
see?
When a ship came through. That's actually the Emerald Queen Casino coming into the port in 1996 when they had their casino on the Upper Blair Waterway. This is a shot of an evergreen ship that came to Tacoma from Seattle in 1991. Started out at Terminal 4, moved to Pierce County Terminal to handle their growth needs.
Yeah.
So that's just a shot of some of the container cargo that's a big part of the port. And this is a photo from February of 2018 when 4 huge cranes came into the port.
Yes.
They were built in China. And flashing back a bit, the Northern Pacific Railroad had a huge set of shops in South Tacoma. And they repaired locomotives and any Northern Pacific equipment west of the Mississippi was worked on at that facility.
Wow.
So they employed hundreds of people.
That is impressive.
Some of the cargoes moving in and out of the port, or actually before the port was even established, certainly logs and lumber, natural resources, such as this, one of the larger logs, and the rail connections of the city and later on through the port have been key parts and still are today of how cargo moves. This is a shot, a drawing for the master plan for the port that was voted on and approved by voters. The port was created in 1918. This plan was approved in 1919 on 240 acres of land. So that's where the port started.
That is incredible. Oh, and of course.
This is Pier 1. That was the first pier developed. And as you can see, I believe logs are being, or lumber is being loaded. So Pier 1 was the first facility at the port, opened in 1921. Logs and lumber were a major part. Then we started on Pier 2 in 1922, and I didn't realize till I found this photo that horses were used to help grade Pier 2. So horsepower and men helped build the port. You might wonder why a warehouse would have flags like this in it. That was July 5th of 1923 when President Harding was in town.
Oh my gosh.
He spoke at Stadium Bowl, and then he hopped on a ship at Pier 2. I believe he drove through, his cavalcade drove through this warehouse to get to the ship that he hopped on to go to Alaska. So those are just a few items. This is a cold storage facility that opened in 1923, and that was crucial for the farmers in Puyallup and in Pierce County to store a variety of agricultural goods and get them to market. This photo shows the Blair Waterway being dredged and expanded in 1966. It created about 1,500 additional acres.
Outstanding. So, Ilona, you're sitting over there just so patient as you're watching all of these slides. So tell us of those slides, and also ones that we still have yet to see, how many of them came from the Northwest Room?
Most of the photos in Rod's book came from the Northwest Room, our image archives. Rod came to us with a long list of images that he was interested in, and most of them we had to rescan to the specifics of the publisher, and that list kept evolving and changing and expanding, and it was a real pleasure to be looking at all these photos and in the same process learning about the history ourselves too.
Oh, I bet. I mean, you two have such admiration for each other. I can tell by the way you look at each other, because you were pretty much glued to the hip. When did you start this project? How many years?
It was, I submitted a proposal for it in February of 2022. So I basically, but I had started working on it earlier. It took me about a year. I wrapped it up pretty much in December of 2022.
Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
And then how long did it take you to take that list and to find what he was looking for?
Well, it took many months, and mostly because it kept changing, and we had to do the rescanning, and then making sure that Rod got all the citations correct.
Yes.
But it was very interesting, and one of the lengthier processes that I've been through.
Yeah, and boy, talk about, I mean, because your skills of archiving and bringing things back out, but also you got to listen to these stories, which doesn't always go hand in hand with archive photos. I mean, we pray we get this. We don't always get this kind of knowledge and this kind of attention to detail. We get pictures that we go, gosh, I wish somebody would have documented what this was.
Exactly, yeah. That is often the case, but
well,
not so much here.
What's amazing with the library and the image archives, it's not just they have nice photos. They have well-documented cut lines.
Yes.
So I was a source of some information, but the Northwest Room was a huge source.
Exactly.
Online, in-person, newspaper clippings, newspaper
ads,
you name it. So all were key parts of the puzzle that ended up being that book.
Ended up being this amazing book, and we're looking at some more pictures here. I do want to, Ilona, I want to let our audience know that this is not the first researcher, author that you've worked with.
No.
This is what you do.
This is what we all do. My colleagues, Spencer Bowman, Anna Trammell, and James Peterson, that's what we do in the Northwest Room. And we've helped many other Arcadia books come to light, and other researchers, and just everyday folks, people who want to learn about their old home, people who want to find photos of maybe their family. We do genealogy, just anything you can imagine.
You name it. You helped me find a picture of a tea that happened in an old home that I used to own. It was a garden party that happened on the lawn. And it just amazing, just historical markers and references. Speaking of historical, Rod, you devote an entire chapter in your book to shipbuilding in World War II. That has got to be an amazing chapter because that was a rough time in our history, and rough for people, rough for supplies, rough for everything. So tell us a little bit about that time period, and we also have some pictures we're going to show.
Sure. Well, in World War II, shipbuilding was the largest employer in Tacoma.
Yes.
I think the population of the city at that time was about 100,000. The port connection in January of 1940, these are over 7,000 troops left from Fort Lewis on ships at Pier 2 to go to war games in exercises in California. This is an aerial showing what was Seattle-Tacoma Shipbuilding Corporation, later Todd Pacific Shipyard. It was about 182 acres. More than 70 vessels were built there in support of the war effort in World War II. Here's just one of the launchings down in the tide flats.
Looks like the Titanic.
Well, I think hope it floated longer and
Yes.
better. And so 33,000 people. Men worked down there. This is just a group of them working on one of the ships. There were women who worked as welders.
Go Rosies.
That's true. My mom worked she was a secretary in the shipyards during the war. With that many people, there were a lot of traffic congestion when shifts changed, so they brought in buses to try and alleviate that. There was also a housing shortage. So that's where Salishan came into the picture. Federal funds helped make the housing for about 2,000 people. This is
Look at that.
the first family. Ralph J. Yorgi moved in with his family to Salishan in, I believe, May of 1943.
With their dog even.
Yes, and this was the Surrender Day Parade in downtown Tacoma, I want to say August 15th of 1945.
Those buildings are still there.
Yeah, and the Boy Scouts were the color guard. This was the first troop ship that came back to Pier 2. There were over 4,000 troops on that, and they were coming back from the Pacific. So the port role in support of that World War II effort, that was land that eventually the port bought from the government. But that story could be a book in itself.
I don't think I'm going to look at the port the same ever now when I realize that it had a Jiffy Pop dome in the middle of it, way before my time. So, Ilona, I know some of the Tacoma Library's Northwest Room material is available online. If somebody wanted to come down, like let's say a Rod again, to the Northwest Room and do some research, how would they make arrangements to do that? Because summertime is the time for family reunions. So let's just, research the house we're going to have this in.
Well, right now we are open for appointments only. Wednesday evenings 5 to 7 or Saturdays either from 10 to 1 or 2 to 5. You can give us a call, make an appointment, or you can do it online on our website. We can also do a lot of work for our patrons remotely. We can email scans of articles, pictures. So just give us an email and explain your question and we'll get to work.
Outstanding. So here's the big question I have for you, Mr. Rod, as we have a minute left. What's next?
Well, I'm kind of on the Rotary Civic Circuit giving presentations.
Unplugged tour, yes.
PowerPoint tour. And then on August 11th, I'm working with the Tacoma Historical Society. I'll be there from 6:30 to 8 doing a presentation covering the history of the port and talking a little bit about the book and doing a book signing there.
I love
and that's
this.
free and open to the public.
Thank you to both of you. I cannot say thank you enough to cover the hours, the late hours, the mid-morning hours when both of you were up going, are we ever going to get this published? You're laughing. That tells me you had that conversation. I thank you so much because if we don't know our past, we're doomed to repeat it. And there's some really wonderful things to learn about our grit city in this publication. So thank you. And I don't want this to be the last time the two of you are on the comfy couch. I want it to be the start of many because, you know, there are more places to explore in this great city of ours. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you again.
Okay, thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
You're
Pleasure.
welcome. When we come back, the Dome documentary is going to be discussed in the House. You don't want to miss that. We'll be right back.